Welcome back to Switch to Linux. So today we're going to have a look at just a little guide as to how you might choose a Linux distribution in 2017. So you might want to be looking around at moving from operating systems. Perhaps you're on a Windows or a Mac platform, and in my case I switched off of other major platforms because of the data collection. I think the Mac is a little bit easier to control the data collection, and the stats on my packet sniffers tell me that if I tell a Mac not to collect a lot of data, it really doesn't collect a lot of data. Windows, on the other hand, even if you have all of the privacy settings turned off, you still cannot stop that thing from transmitting a lot of data back and forth, and I don't know what data it's sending. Some of it's encrypted and some of it's not. And that was really the thing for me that caused me to want to switch to Linux, is because I'm a guy that values my privacy. Now, I want to be able to choose who I might share what information with. And really, that is the ultimate goal that we want to do. And so for me, looking at things, as you may or may not remember from my story, as I have said in the past, that I first experimented with Linux because I was looking for an operating system that would work on an external hard drive, mostly because I had a computer that basically had a computer system that had a faulty design in it, and the faulty design, anytime you touched or moved the computer anywhere, it would literally send a shock into the hard drive, and that thing burned through a few hard drives in a matter of a few months. And so I stopped putting hard drives back in that computer. I wanted to go ahead and do something a little bit different there. And so I found Linux, and I want to say I installed. I want to say it might have been Ubuntu 11 or Ubuntu 12. I can't remember it. I think it was actually 11. I think I've said in the past it's 12. But I actually did find an ISO disk for Ubuntu 11, and so I think that's the version it was. And so I installed that onto an external hard drive, and that was my first experience with Linux. And I didn't jump in and use Linux consistently after that point in time. I just ended up getting a different computer that I didn't have a hard drive issue with. So with that being said, though, with Windows 10 coming out and having all of the data collection issues, then that's really when I started to look over at the Linux distributions. And there's a lot of factors that we might consider. And so what I want to talk about today is how might you choose a Linux distro? What is a Linux distro? And what considerations might you think about when you're considering a Linux computer? And again, for me, one of the greatest things about Linux is that you can try it out without wiping out your current hard drive. So you can literally install Linux onto flash drives. So this guy here is a USB 3 128 gigabyte flash drive. I probably paid $30-40 for it. I don't remember exactly. I bought it a long time ago. And this guy here, I can plug this into a computer, and I can boot the computer off of this, and it runs a full-fledged OpenSUSE computer with the Enlightenment desktop. And this guy here, as long as I plug it into a computer with enough power and resources, can even run Windows on top of OpenSUSE on this little flash drive. And that's really a power of Linux. I can plug that into any computer without interfering with the existing operating system. And that means that you can experiment with Linux without wiping out your current computer, and so you can get used to how it works. And so what we're going to consider is a few different things. The first and the second, kind of tied in together, is the workflow and the setup. So what is the setup that you prefer on your computer? Are you open to change? Maybe you're not. So on my main Linux work computers that I actually get most of my functional work on, anything from these videos to when I'm traveling on the road, I don't take a Windows computer with me anymore, mostly because my Windows computer I bought it in 2010, so it will turn 7 this year. It still runs perfectly fine, other than the fact that the battery doesn't work. And I'm not going to throw money into throwing a new battery into a 7-year-old computer right now, so I keep it perpetually docked and plugged into the wall over here and attach it to a monitor, and that's how I use it. But when I'm traveling, I use the computer I'm recording this video on, which has actually almost the same specs, but this is a newer computer. Battery life lasts about 6 hours. And so I have this set up to almost exactly how a Windows computer is set up, because I have found, being a person in the Windows environment most of my computing experience life, that I'm most comfortable with the Windows platform. And because I'm most comfortable with the Windows platform, I set it up that way, and I simply found that I work very quickly and efficiently, even as Windows has evolved over the years with the start keys, the favorites menus, quickly accessing the desktop, working off of the desktop. So those are all factors that you want to consider. Is how is the general workflow that you are used to, and how do you like your computer set up? Now, you might do something a little bit different. Like this computer that you're seeing here is utilizing a desktop called KDE. And this guy is actually kind of a hybrid. I have it set up in a lot of the ways. I can just click the button there to get up the same thing, the start menu, although this is a little bit more advanced of a menu if I hover over each individual item. And sorry you can't see it up close, but I do have a lot of those elements. And the other thing about this, though, is that I have a nice panel of widgets and stuff on the one side. And then what I do is I just use the space outside the widget. So I always have access to the weather. And then the second panel actually gives me access to the dialog boxes on my Android phone. And then I have a quick launch panel for my most used applications and a few other web design tools. The thing I don't like about the KDE desktop, though, and the reason I don't use it for regular workflow, is because you can't work off the desktop easily. You can work off of these folders that you throw on the desktop, but it's just not quite the same. So that's something you consider. If you are more used to a Mac setup, there are Linux distros that have a very similar setup to the Mac. Although I will say that kind of means the user interface. A lot of the hotkeys still represent closer to what the Windows do, which is actually just fine because Mac really doesn't have a lot of the same keyboard functionality as a Windows computer does anyway. And I'm a guy that I work with all three operating systems every single day. I always have a Mac computer running, always have a Linux computer running, and always have a Windows computer running because my job requires it. So you need to consider the setup and the workflow and how you work. The next thing that you want to consider is your computer competence. How competent are you with a computer? Do you want to set something up and not have to work with it, or do you want to be a whole lot more involved in the customization and in the setup process? Do you want to spend some time making things work, or you just simply want it to work out of the box? If you're a geek like me, although it could be a wasted evening potentially, it's kind of fun making a computer work. So you have that. The fourth thing you might consider is the ease of use. How easy is the distribution to use? And this is kind of a relative thing. As you know, as you get used to any computer system, how you have it set up, a distro can be easier or harder to use based upon how you're used to working. And so ease of use is a relative factor, but it's still something. Do you want to go through the learning curve of learning something new? Like KDE for me was a completely different learning experience because of how you had to interact with the system. And it did take me a good week to get the computer set up exactly the way I like it. And the main distro I'll show you here in a few minutes, for me worked out of the box. I think I made 15 minutes. I simply moved some icons and things around, and that's about all that took. The fifth thing to consider is the programs that you need to use. Now, obviously, programs are written for different systems, and a lot of your major programs are being written on either a Windows or a Mac-based platform. However, more people are moving towards a web-based interface, and if you're utilizing a web-based interface for more of your work, it doesn't really matter what operating system you're on because everything is managed on the web end. So, for example, accounting. Although you can still purchase a QuickBooks or a Peachtree software as a desktop system, both of those platforms are moving their clients wherever they can, whenever they can, to online platforms. Of course, there's also things like FreshBooks are coming up as QuickBooks alternatives to help a small business person who doesn't want to learn all of the ins and outs of QuickBooks but still wants to get their own personal accounting done. And so you have that consideration going for you as well. So as more and more of our world shifts to a cloud-based platform, it makes more sense to switch to a Linux distribution because we have a whole lot less data collection, and the systems generally work much the same way. Anything from our mail applications to the software that we're using, even Office 365, which you can set up in, for example, the Peppermint desktop system allows you to set up a what is called an SSB. Basically, it is a sub-program that is set to run these cloud-based services that we use. It's a very nice platform. And number 6 is collaboration. How much collaboration do you need to do? One of the downsides that I've seen to Linux to date, although Microsoft is working on this, is Skype. Now, I would really love it if there were a great alternative to Skype, but unfortunately, the majority of my clients in the web design world are still using Skype, and I have to use Skype. The downside, everything works great, with the one sole exception is that if someone else is sharing their screen with me, as of right now, it comes through as blurry. Microsoft is working on a unified platform. Last I knew a few months ago, it was still in an alpha stage. It was working for phone calls. They did not have screen sharing capabilities in, but it does promise to, it is showing some promise to be a much better system than current applications. That being said, Skype still does work on a Linux platform just fine as far as, basic teleconferencing, communication, texting. It's not quite as pretty as it is on Mac. I'm not sure what it looks like on Windows. I uninstalled it on Windows computers long ago. But those are kind of the considerations that you might use when trying to determine what Linux distro you want to use. So I'm going to show you here. I'm going to clip this video in and out so we get a chance to have a look at a few different Linux distros. The first one I'm actually going to show you is my absolute favorite. The distro that I generally point most people, particularly if you're coming from a Windows platform, I might push you into experimenting with Linux Mint. And we're going to transition back, and this is my desktop. So it is set up pretty much exactly like Windows. I have my main computer icon here, which will get me access to my file systems. The home box will get me access to all the basic things that you might see on a Windows system. So here I can access, there's music, there's pictures, videos, whatever else you might want to have on there. And so there's a lot of the functionality that you would have. Here's your network icons, your trash can, and then of course this system makes it extremely easy to work off the desktop. I can right-click things and I can create new documents and whatever else I need to do on there. Here's desktop settings. I can change my background pictures. In fact, I have this set up to change my background picture. I think every 10 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes, and I just utilize scenery from the various places that I've traveled to over the years. And so with your basic menu, my start menu works without fighting with it. That is something that some Linux distros, you got to fight with what we would be used to in a Windows computer as a Windows button. It doesn't always function as you might anticipate coming from a Windows world. But here on Linux Mint, it works just fine. I can throw favorites over here on the far left, and then I can access various programs over here based on their type, and then I can customize everything that is in this menu here. All right, so that's kind of what that looks like. The other things that make this very similar to the Windows type platform is we do have a system tray that is very much like the Windows system tray. Lots of notifications. We have the update manager, which will show me, like right now, I can see that there is an update. It's not a security update or anything. I've already looked at it. I'm just not going to bother updating it until a security item shows up. But the other thing is that we can very quickly show the desktop just by putting a show desktop icon here. And there's a couple different ways in the Linux world the show desktop icon will work. One of them is like the Mac, and it will just simply throw everything out of the way. The other way is it literally forces everything to be minimized. And forcing everything to be minimized is the behavior that the Windows uses, and throwing everything just out of the way is the functionality that the Mac uses. There is a difference between that. Some distributions like the KDE back here will allow you to use either one of them. Linux Mint generally has the method where it minimizes all windows when you click the button. And then I just threw it over here, just like on a Windows computer. If you throw your mouse to the bottom right-hand corner of the screen and click, it will minimize all windows and you'll see the desktop. And that's a very fast and efficient way to go. So if you do like the Windows type approach, but you're not sure you want to use Linux Mint, there are some other options out there. There are a ton of distributions set up much like this. Another one you might look at is the Peppermint Linux distro. I also have this Makulu, which actually my Makulu desktop I actually set up to actually mimic Windows 10. I kind of set it up that way intentionally. So you'll see here as this system boots up, I actually went online, grabbed the Windows 10 wallpaper, and I put a Windows 10 start menu button down there at the bottom. So, and then the theming, this Linux distro actually comes with a Windows 10 theme. In fact, it comes with a theme that will cover all of your basic Windows systems all the way back. I know XP's in there. I'm not sure if Windows 95 or Windows 98 are in there. But this one here, if you want a Linux system that you're kind of hiding that you're on Linux, this one would be a good distro to go with, because it actually took me, I want to say it took me maybe 10 minutes to set this up to look exactly like Windows, almost exactly like Windows 10. It's not exact, but it's pretty close. And actually, I have a video showing you how I did all this. In fact, if I even, I'm just going to move my picture there a little bit. Let me transition down. You'll see here I even put a clock up there that kind of mimics that, which is kind of cool. All right. So with that being said, of course, here's that Windows wallpaper. I'm using all of the same desktop icons as you see in Windows 10. All of your status bar items are Windows 10. I think this is a little bit different in the show desktop item is a little bit different. Your Windows button down here, of course, if I open this up, it is slightly different. They're mimicking the kind of the style with those, but of course it doesn't look the same as a Windows 10 button. But it is still a very interesting distro if you want to create something that people don't know exactly that you're not on Windows, but it kind of looks like it. Then that one's actually a decent one to look at. And so that is kind of how you might set up a Windows-based approach. Some other types of distros. Let me see. This one might be Manjaro, or this might be something else. We're just going to boot it up and see what it is. Oh, okay. It does say it's Manjaro there. So this guy here is Manjaro. So Manjaro is a little bit more of an advanced system. Manjaro is it is a Linux distro built on the Arch platform, which is generally considered a more advanced Linux distro. So you want to make sure that if you're using Manjaro that you have a little bit higher on the computer competency, so that you will probably encounter a few issues here and there that you're going to want to resolve. The Manjaro system, this one here, I'll tell you for sure when it boots up. I think this is based on the XFCE desktop, which is very similar to, no, I think this is Mate, actually. Let me see. I think this is XFCE. Well, looks like it anyway. Yeah, so we're using XFCE on this one. So there's different distros. The XFCE desktop is actually a nice one because it will allow you to set this up a lot of different ways. In fact, the one that I prefer, the Linux Mint Cinnamon, some people like their taskbars on the bottom, some people like them on the top. With Cinnamon and XFCE, you can put them on the top, on the bottom, or even on the left. And it's very easy to make these adjustments. You can just come over here. So here is where you might put it. So there is a vertical panel, and then a desk bar platform just arranges the icons to look a little bit different. If you check out the icons over here, how they're stacked, if I change this to vertical, you'll see how it stacks a little bit different. Then, of course, the horizontal, and then I can actually move it. And if I move the panel, I can just grab it, and I should be able to move it somewhere. I've never moved panel. Well, let's see. I can't say I never move panels. I usually put my panels specifically down down at the bottom, so I'm forgetting exactly how I move this one, but it is very possible to put it up at the very top. Here I can adjust the settings and everything. So this platform here also, as you can see, I have it set up very much like that same workflow. It is the workflow that I really like to use. That's why I set up as many distros like this as I can. And then you can come in here, and it is a little bit different of a platform, as you can see. Works a little bit different, but for the most part, this guy here is considered a pretty fast, pretty stable system, and you can also set this up to work a lot of different ways. Now, if you happen to be a person that likes the GNOME type, or the Mac type platform, you want to look into the GNOME system. Oh, I meant to shut down. I actually just hit log out. Let's see. Can I come down here and shut down? Okay. So if you're used to more of a Mac type platform, you want to go with a system that is either like Elementary would be a good one, or anything that's running GNOME. I'm trying to think if I have something that runs GNOME I can actually boot up. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to boot into, I think 25 might give me an issue, so I'm going to boot into 24 here. Okay. Okay. So this is Fedora. Fedora is a distro. A lot of people who use Linux a lot in the community do like the Fedora desktop. I'm not a big fan of it because it's one that traditionally you've really had to fight with to get it working. Like you can go online and look at the top 25 things that you need to do with Fedora after a new install, and it's like all stuff. It's like, why is this not done already? And so for a person who's coming from the media-friendly worlds like the Mac and the PC worlds, coming from those platforms and those desktops, moving into something like Fedora, which is not very media-friendly, is a challenge. And one of the things that you will notice here when we boot into this is that it will not be full screen like the other ones have been. That has to do with how the distribution runs what are called guest editions. Because I'm doing all this on a VirtualBox. And with the guest editions, that's what allows me to run full screen. Getting guest editions to work in the Fedora system is actually a little bit of a pain. I'm going to get rid of my picture there just so that we can see what this guy looks like, because there's some interference over here. So what we have with this platform here is over here we have this dock ability, which can be set just like a Mac down here on the bottom, or you can keep it on the side. So this is this platform here is it is a very nice system. Now this does not run smoothly in a VirtualBox. If you were to actually install this on your computer, and I wish I still had one installed on here, it is quite a bit snappier. So you are noticing it's a little slow. It's because this distro is actually quite system heavy, and I am recording HD video while I'm showing you this, and so it is a little bit slower. But the overall platform here is a nice workflow. This will behave quite a bit more like a Mac. You can set it up. You can even see it looks a little bit different. One of the things I don't really like about this one is it almost seems a little out of place. Like there's no real integrated taskbar portion. If you come down here, up here, everything in the upper corner there is all interconnected. So it's all one button which controls my volume and my network and my battery and my logins and settings all in one panel, one place. And I think that just, to me, it feels sloppy coming from the direction that I like to work in. But if that's no big deal to you, that's no big deal. This is a very, very popular desktop, and it's actually a very nice system. So I'm not denigrating that at all. You can set this up a variety of ways. Let me see. I want to see if the tweak tool is built into this. I don't think it is. No, tweak tool is not built in. The tweak tool is what will allow me to drop this dock on the bottom, so you can see it's like a Mac. But overall, the Fedora system is a little bit more of a complicated system. There's a lot more settings that you have to do. Most of your proprietary media, things like MP3s and any movie files that you might have laying around, will probably not work on it well. I know some people have fought with CD-ROMs not working very well. So, and a lot of that just has to do with the philosophy behind Fedora is one that they really understand. They really understand what the purpose of an open source platform is, because really there is licensing fees to utilize the MP3 platforms. And so they are cognizant of that. All right, so the next one, if you are looking for a more ready-to-go, out-of-the-box type Mac approach, you are going to want to look at Elementary OS. This is another one that for me, I'm not a huge fan of it, simply because I'm really not a huge fan of the Mac feel as a whole. I also don't like how light it is on system tools. If I look at my Linux Mint or my Peppermint or a lot of my other distros, there are a whole lot of system tools that are available to me as I am working on tools. So, for example, I write a whole lot of USB drives. I do a lot of disk management, disk utilities, a lot of fascinating things that I do. I really want there to be a lot of system tools. And Elementary OS is a very clean system because it has none of those. And so with that being said, the Elementary OS, though, out of the box, will work with all your media files. It's very friendly to all of your online accounts. And it is a very clean interface that does have a feel. It does give you a feel much like a Mac computer does. And so, with that being said, this one is another one that does run a little bit slower in a VirtualBox. It does take a little bit more system resources here than a lot of your other distros, and so it does run a little sluggish. Some people, as I had commented, one of my top videos is actually utilizing or a walkthrough of pros and cons of the Elementary OS system. And some people say it runs really smooth, and some people say it's not really smooth at all. And so what we're going to do here, I'm going to drop my image down there so that you can see that we have a panel up here. This one here, unlike the GNOME desktop that we just looked at, everything is actually an opposite platform. I have a kitty that wants to say hi. This is a kitty that wants to say hi. Say hi, kitty. Say hi. You say hi? No, he doesn't want to say hi. He just wants to see her, though. He's been bugging me for the last 5 minutes. So I throw him in my lap. There you go. Here, we'll do this. There. The kitty will be watching the distro for a little bit. Okay. All right. So this one here, unlike the GNOME platform, all of the various items up here will show you the items individually. So your battery here, your network here, your volume here. We have the ability to turn on and turn off our notifications. So you can do that from inside of here. We have a calendar availability here, and then, of course, your applications menu is over here. So you can see how clean it is. And one of the things that I really like about this platform as a user, like if I were to have kids in the house and I wanted them on a Linux platform, this is probably the distro I would use, because I can set up different user groups on this, which I can do on any Linux distro, but this actually has built-in parental control tools. So you can limit or restrict internet access, you can limit or restrict certain applications a whole lot easier on this distro than you can on many other distros. And I want to say that's in system settings. Let me double check that. Let's see. So down here, you can see down under administration, you can see parental controls. It says no users to edit because we're on a live key. If you check out the video where I did the pros and cons of the Elementary OS distro, then you will find that I walk through how to set all that up. So this is a great distro in that respect. As I did say, extremely light on applications. This is all the applications that are on here. There are no system utilities or anything else. They are all available. I guess there's this system utility. There's a partition editor. All of those system utilities are available. They are just not pre-installed. And for some people, that's exactly the way they want to go because they do not want to be bogged down with extra stuff. And so with that respect, this is a very, very good distro for what it is. And one of the things that I did find, it does come by default, it utilizes the Epiphany web browser. If you are using this platform, you're gonna want to install another browser because the Epiphany browser, I showed site speed tests, and the Epiphany browser is about half the speed of Firefox, and so you might want to consider that. What are you doing, kitty? So this cat does what we call cuteness bombs, and he will just come by and just kind of nuke you. He's cute. All right, so we're going to shut this guy down, and we will see if there is any other distros we want to have a quick look at. So we kind of looked at the setup there. You know what we'll do? We'll have a quick look at a KDE desktop system, and then. Let's see, so to do that, I'm going to want to open up, I want to say this one will do it. I'm going to start that up. Yeah, all right, give me a million likes and a million views for this cute cat, everybody. Thumbs up for the cat, thumbs up for the cat. All right. So here we're going to transition over. Well, this loads up. So now we are actually loading Debian, which is one of the more grandfathery type Linux distros, one of the older ones that even if you've heard of Ubuntu is built on top of Debian. So this is running Debian KDE. I think I have a couple different distros of KDE of Debian laying around, and I think this is the KDE version. All right. So here you can see, I think this is probably the KDE version because I'm getting the mouse looks like it. All right. So KDE, and depending on the version that's on this is a slightly older version. It's not quite as quick. The one that's over on this computer behind me here is quite a bit faster of a distro. This one here, you can see this just like Fedora does not have your let's see, it doesn't have the guest edition, so it's not full screen. That's what I was trying to say there. So here though, under your KDE menu, you can see it's a very nice, very modern UI. This one is a very customizable system. Let's see, so if we can add widgets here, we can add various widgets to the desktop or add widgets to the panel. So, and this is a version of the system I'm not actually used to. I actually use quite a bit newer of a system. Okay, so there we go. So we just added that to the desktop. So now we have an analog clock, and then I can move these guys around where I want them. So I can create a whole lot of different platforms. This one here, like I said, is a little bit more of an advanced system. You're not going to work on the desktop quite as easy on this distro as you are some other systems, but it is definitely going to be a platform that is a very nice one. If you're more of an advanced computer user and you want more functionality or a more customized setup, this is one of the desktop environments you want to use. So we've looked at a couple of different distros, really the difference between a distro in any given approach is that a distro itself is what is the package, where's the software coming from. That's kind of what defines the distro. The other thing is you have a desktop environment. And the desktop environment means that how the operating system works. So my main computer, which is the this is called the Cinnamon desktop here. This guy here, it's the desktop environment that sets up how the computer is run. So this is the Cinnamon desktop. We looked at the GNOME desktop, which is kind of like the Mac. We looked at the Pantheon desktop, which is in Elementary OS. That is very much like the Mac. We looked at XFCE, which is very much like the Windows desktop. Mate is another one we did not look at that is also like the Windows desktop. And all of these desktops are quite easy to customize. One of the ones that we did not look at here today, one of the absolute most, in fact, why don't we just go ahead and boot that up if I got one laying around, is the Ubuntu desktop. Let's see. I have to go find an Ubuntu install here. That's Ubuntu Studio 1604 desktop. Okay, so we'll do that and we will start that up. So the Ubuntu system utilizes what we call the Unity desktop. In 2017, I think we're still going to be on Unity 17. There's some debate. Some people are saying Unity 8 is going to be ready. I don't think Unity 8 is going to be ready. It's been ongoing. My number one viewed video at this time is that controversial video where I'm asking, is Ubuntu 17 should be out in April? And my question is, will Unity 8 be ready? And I have a sneaky suspicion that Unity 8 is not going to be ready. But Unity 7 is a great platform. Ubuntu 16.04 is a fabulous distro to get used to. It's a little bit different from the Mac and the Windows environment. So if you are looking for something that's different, Ubuntu might be the way you want to go. I thought it loaded guest editions. Maybe it doesn't. Oh, let's cancel that. I'm just going to hit the try Ubuntu. That might load up my guest editions so it runs a little bit better. If it doesn't, then I'm going to take my picture off of there. The Ubuntu platform is a little bit more of a system-heavy system. So if you are running this on an older type computer, you probably don't want to run Ubuntu. I was running this on a little netbook with 2 gigs of RAM for about a year, and it was nice. It worked well, but it really wasn't as nice as I would have liked it to be. I'm just seeing if I can. It looks like it does not want us to go any larger. So let me just go ahead and get rid of my picture. There we go. All right, so here's the Ubuntu desktop with Unity, and this is Unity 7. So you'll see it is quite a bit different. For the longest time, you could not move this toolbar. As of this edition, you can actually now move it on the bottom, although most people generally prefer to keep it on the side. I know for me, once the update occurred where I was able to put it on the bottom, I just left it on the side anyway. But if you're using a lighter weight platform like a computer with lower system resources, you don't want to run GNOME, you don't want to run Unity. You may or may not want to run Cinnamon, although Cinnamon's not all that heavy. It's not as heavy as Unity, but if you are going to be running a desktop or a computer that is lower in system resources, you want to run something like XFCE, so Peppermint or a Manjaro or something like that. So this guy here, the Unity platform, it is completely different. We have a basic search application here. We can just do a basic application search. So you'll see the applications coming out. And then basically we have this launcher over here, and you can add things and remove things. We can unlock it from the launcher. And then if we boot up something like, maybe we'll boot up Thunderbird. Once an application is running, you can right-click and lock it to the launcher. So if I close the program, then it will stay there attached to the launcher. So this platform here is a very nice system as well. It is quite a bit different from either the Windows or the Mac environment, but it is a platform here that is very popular in the Linux world. Most people like it. Some people hate it. although I really like the Ubuntu platform, it's not one I use a lot. I mean, I use it on this computer when it's not running KDE. I put Ubuntu on here, and that's actually the one I use to control all my media stuff if I need to manually adjust a media server, or if I need to get into a manage an AWS server or manage any other web server I'm doing with an SSH shell. I actually prefer Ubuntu for that platform. For most of my other work, though, I generally prefer the Linux Mint Cinnamon edition. So those are some of the various distros here that I wanted to walk through. Hopefully that is helpful for you, and if you're trying to switch to Linux in 2017, hopefully that will give you a guide. And this is me and the kitty saying, I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.